Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Bosch Legacy Season 2, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so we're picking up exactly where the last episode left off, and we have Ellis and Long trying to kill Mo and Bosch, knocking their car off the cliff, and luckily they didn't die. I love Mo's explanation. Like, no, luckily, because it's an electric car, there's no gas tank, so we didn't go boom. But Bosch is like, it doesn't work like that. That only happens in the movies, so... And they kind of had their little back and forth about it. But I was like, yeah, you're going to regret not double tapping and making sure that they were dead. But to be fair, it's like, I guess their way justification for that, it's like, well, there's not much we can do about it because we needed to, like, it's not going to look like an accident. It's going to look like they were pushed. Well, yeah, because you'd assume that because there'd be damage to the Mo's side of the car, that would be like, yeah, the driver's side of the car showing like, yeah, they were knocked off the cliff. But it's also like they couldn't use their guns, probably because at the time they needed to make sure they wiped them out now before like anything else gets further along in the investigation. So they probably didn't want to double tap because probably the only weapons they had on them at the time were probably their service weapons. So they probably couldn't like have anything with like a register because it draws more attention if it looks like maybe like some random hit and run. As long as they don't find the car, it's fine. So they didn't expect anyone to kind of survive, but luckily they did. So I actually think it's actually this, you could tell Bosch has this like he's like, oh, I'm gonna chill here for a while. It's like, yeah, but what Mo's like, wouldn't better bit of your time be about finding the people? He's like, yeah, just in a little bit. And it's actually really sweet because it's like Mo is his partner in crime or partner in justice in this regard. And it's like, yeah, like you got hurt because this is me. Like you're only in this situation because I kind of drug you along. Like, yeah, we work together in this, but like I kind of put you in this position. I think also you add in what happened to Maddie with Dockweiler, that is just kind of like, he doesn't do well with people around him getting hurt. And especially in this case, like I said, it's like, to him, Mo getting hurt is just the same thing as like Jerry getting hurt. It's like, yo, my partner got hurt and I can't do anything about it. In fact, it's kind of my fault because, I mean, he's already blaming himself for like, the Nguyen brothers who are mixed up in all this, who got killed like 2 episodes ago. He already blames himself because it's like, oh, it's my fault they got murdered. And now it's like Mo could have died, because of it. So it's just like people around him getting hurt. It's just, it's a lot for Bosch, especially the people he cares about. His kind of ride or dies, like, getting hurt is just, it's a lot for him. But it turns out the brothers' insurance policy was a video. It wasn't just a recording, an audio recording. It's a video showing Ellis and Long, like, and their interaction with the brothers. So it's like, okay, so it solidifies that, yes, they are connected to all of this. You're able to take everything and piece it all together. So the timeline is the doctor stole all his wife's jewelry to make it seem like a robbery, to get the insurance policy, to pay off his quote-unquote gambling debts. It's Ellis and Long. But then they gave it to the Nguyen's, who ended up selling it to, what's the dude's name, Vince, who ended up giving it to his wife, but she needed it repaired, and then she found out it was stolen, and this would have all led to their whole operation being found out. So Ellis and Long had to kill her, so... But the problem is, the biggest kind of like rough, like complication to this situation is that they still don't have evidence, because like they can prove like, okay, they don't have a clear cut way to prove that David had nothing to do with the murder, because they know like, okay, he was with James. James is his alibi, but sadly James is dead now. But how did they get his DNA on and in Lexi? I'm assuming James would have had something to do with that, because James was their CI, and him getting, like, maybe it just happened to be like, why David Foster? That's the biggest question. Like, why was he chosen as the fall guy for this? So it must have been like they like, because James and him have had a thing for a while, so either they were planning that in advance, because usually they do this to blackmail people, so you would have thought this would have gotten used against David when it came to his family, but maybe James never acted upon it or whatever, or I don't know. Like, to me, that seems like the only reason why you'd be able to have his DNA is if it was James, because that's the person he's hooking up with on the side. So, like, James might have been responsible for kind of putting David in that terrible situation. We'll have to wait and see. But, like, to me, that's the only explanation of how you would get his DNA and be able to put it in. I mean, they are cops, so they could fudge some of that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the solution for that is going to end up being. But that's kind of the final piece of the puzzle that Bosch and Chandler need to prove David's innocence, which David got beat up this episode. It wasn't just by prisoners. The guards not only stood by, but even joined in because he's like, yeah, I'm at a sheriff's department in like a prison with a whole bunch of sheriffs, a lot of guards from the sheriff's department. And yeah, I'm being accused of murdering a sheriff's wife. It's that, like, hey, you come after us, you come after all of us type of thing. And it's just like, he's an innocent man getting beat up for something he didn't do. It's also like, how are you going to feel when you find out in actuality it's like, oh, it was actually a fellow cop that did it. Like, that's going to, but they don't care right now. Like, it sucks that they are in it. Like, that is how that works, that, you know. And so Chandler had to get him like protective custody, and it's just like, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it's like, right, we got to be careful because they are going to be keeping an eye on us, so we can't let what happened happen again. So they probably won't try anything like slick like that again, but it's still like, you're still asking the sheriff's department to still look after him and be extra careful about. It's just, I'm worried that storyline's not going to have a happy ending, that despite him being proven innocent, like, that he might die before he ends up getting proven innocent. Like, I get the feeling that might be a potential element to this. I kind of dropped it a while back, but I'm circling back to, like, I wonder, did Vince have something to do with this? I mean, it doesn't seem... I mean, he's been out of the story since, like, the last time we saw him was when Bosch ran into him at his house. That's the only interaction we've had with Vince since then. So it's like, he is out of the story in that regard. So, he kind of brought a little pressure on Bosch because he brought it up to cops about what Bosch is doing. Once again, they have a big issue with him because he's, you know, quote-unquote, working for the dark side. So, that's the only, like, tangential connection to Vince the series the seasons kind of continue to have. So I don't know if he's going to be like that person that, once again, he's not in the season that much, but he ends up being a part of all this. Probably unlikely, but that was something I thought beforehand. And like, the last time he showed up, I had that inkling, like, maybe he's involved in this, but he hasn't popped up in any point in this investigation. His name hasn't come up. So, I mean, once again, there's still 2 more episodes, so there's always room for a twist in that regard, but we'll see. Because it seems like this episode kind of settles like all that we had. Because I wondered previously in the beginning, early on in the season, whether Ellis and Long were working with anyone else. I mean, they are working with people, but no one's above them. This whole gig is their operation. No one else above them, at least not that we're aware of. I mean, maybe they have a third partner we're just not aware of. It could be events. But it seems like it's just a Ellis and Long situation. It could just easily be like someone else could be partnered up with them who's just keeping their distance. Like I said, we'll see, but that probably is unlikely. But I'm gonna keep that option open in my head, because we do have 2 of the ladies that they work with. They were talking to them this episode, and Mo had went to that place that they. So it's like, all right, these ladies can be potential witnesses to at least the blackmail, and the 2 escorts that could be part of like testifying against Ellis and Long about their involvement with like blackmailing people and extortion and stuff like that. So can't really probably do too much on the murder front, but maybe they have a lot, you know, who knows what they really know, because they are deep into this operation. So they might have some records or some proof that like takes Ellis and Long down. Maybe because even much like the 2 brothers had an insurance policy, maybe those 2 ladies have an insurance policy too. I mean, after they found out that not only is Bosch still alive, it's like, well, we could go after Mo, but let's wait to go after him, because it's like, there's too much too sudden. Like, we don't want to like come after him now immediately, because that's going to draw too much attention. But later on, when they found out that Bosch came and visited their car, the one they used to knock them off the road, it's like, okay, the bastard's getting too close. We have to do something about it now. And Ellis was suggesting, like, let's run away. But Long is like, no, I want to stay. So it's like, well, it's not really going to have much of a choice. But before they go, they are going to have to do a scorched earth thing. It's like, get rid of everything. So those two ladies would most likely end up dead because they were cleaning house. Any ties back to them, they already took care of the brothers. The only two loose ends would be the ladies and the doctor. Which they do show up to kill the doctor. Luckily, Bosch had gotten there beforehand and got it on recording about the doctor's involvement in all of this. That he was being blackmailed. They got $100,000 from him, but then, that's where all the insurance policy stuff came in. I didn't correlate and put it together that the person it wasn't until they showed the recap I was like, oh, that's the doctor. I wasn't paying much attention with his name beforehand. No, and it's like, right, when we got introduced to him, what was he doing? He was doing kind of a house call, kind of helping someone with maybe some lymph injections. But I wasn't paying attention to the character's name because they didn't say it, but I didn't check the IMDb or anything like that. And I also wasn't paying as much attention because Bosch looked at his website or whatever last episode, but I wasn't paying as much attention. So it wasn't until the recap that I was like, oh, that guy's the doctor. Interesting, because we saw them shaking him down a couple episodes ago because he's owes him $10,000 a month because he got caught having sex with a patient. Obviously the whole thing was a setup. But yeah, they showed up at at the doctor's place. They didn't know Bosch was going to be there. They just came to kill the doctor. And Bosch is trying to protect the doctor. And it's like, he's like, aren't you going to call for backup? He's like, well, I'm not actually a cop. He's like, are you fucking with me? The idiot had to come out the room. It's like, oh, you stupid, stupid idiot. The fact of the matter is, he even said, hey, I'm trying to protect you and your wife. It's like, yes, I got what I needed on recording, luckily, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't mean as much because, hey, he's dead now because the idiot came out, and I was like, they're just waiting to kill you. It's like, you stupid, stupid idiot. Why would you come out? Because I guess in his head, he's like, well, as long as I confessed to him, I didn't tell him nothing. He claimed to be a cop, yada, yada, yada. It's still like, hey, this guy's looking out for your best interest. He told you to stay here and lock the door, but maybe he thought oh, Bosch, he's probably very distrustful in the moment. It's like, well, you lied to me about being a cop. You're probably also lying about protecting me. You're probably going to scurry off and save yourself. I guess I understand it, but also it's just no part of you thought oh, what he said was true, that they are cleaning house. I mean, but he let down his guard. I mean, there's not much he could have done, and Long ended up killing him. I figured out of anyone, Long will be the one that walked away dead in this situation. I mean, he's still alive by the end of the episode. He's in critical condition, but Bosch had already called the cops, so there was no... Ellis couldn't stay to finish things, so he's on the run. Long is, like I said, in critical condition, and Bosch is trying to get information out. He's like, I'm not a snitch, and he's like, yeah, you keep telling yourself that, punk, or something like that. And it's just if you survive this, you're going to be doing some serious time, and you are a cop that will be going to prison. Next to pedophiles. I'm not equating them, but cops and pedophiles are the two criminals that do not do well in prison. So it might be singing a different tune when you want to kind of lighten your own sentence and make sure you don't get put in a place with general popular. You don't want to be put in gen pop because people find out you're a cop, you're super dead. So we'll see. Especially when it's tying you to the murder of a sheriff, or all the heat and stuff that David's getting is going to fly on you, and it's going to be doubly harsh on the criminals, because most likely the sheriff's department or whatever would be like, oh yeah, this guy who killed this guy, he's a... Oh, they had to be he's a cop, and that could just... Oh, they wouldn't even have to get involved, or they just have to look the other way as any prisoners decide to kill Long. So that's a possibility of how that all play out. We'll see if he'll decide, like I said, to change his tune in the next episodes or not about that whole situation. So, but yeah, Ellis is in the wind, so we'll see. Even Bosch is yeah, he might be long gone before now. He can't really do much now. Not unless he tries to get to Ellis. Not unless Ellis tries to get to Long and kill him, but it's that probably won't do him any good either, because I'm you're just going to be bringing more. You need to lay low because everyone's looking for you now. So, but Bosch did give the evidence to the cops who are investigating Lexi's murder. But the fact is that it's like, hey, that witness being alive would do us better than like just having this recording. But Bosch is like, go ahead and do your fucking job, you know? Because he's like, I went and found the actual killers. I'm actually telling you who actually it is, and you're acting like it's not good enough. It's like, go and actually do some legwork and do your actual job. So it's like a retired cop did more for this investigation than you did, and especially in Bosch's mind. But I think you could say realistically as well. But either way. So that's one side of things. I didn't talk about it all last episode because I actually forgot to talk about it. Was Mo and the whole Jade situation. He had gave her the flash drive. He had gathered up all the files that he needed to, and the only copy is the one he gave to Jade. I'm still suspicious of that storyline. I'm like, where is that going to go? Because he told her like, hey, I didn't look at it, and she seemed happy. And I feel like if she, because I was about to say, like, if she was just using him for that, would she stick around? Could there be more to it? I don't know. It's just, I'm just like paranoid about that storyline. It's just, I'm like, oh, you about to get screwed over, Mo? I mean, like I said, she came to check on you while you were her, but now she's kind of getting a little like, oh, so it's that guy you're working for. This is what you're up to. I'm like, that feels too purposeful. Like, are we going to find out she's an undercover cop, which once again would be ironic and funny? Not ironic or fun. Well, it'd be interesting because my introduction, like I said, I think my introduction to her was Sleepy Hollow, where, spoilers, she was introduced as like a criminal, but she was actually an undercover cop. I think specifically an undercover FBI agent. So now part of me is like, are we going to tie her storyline with the FBI investigation? Are they just coming at it from a different angle? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Because he even Mo like really likes her, so he opened up to like, yeah, I kind of handle things on like the more hackers. I mean, to be fair, she has a podcast and everything, so that would have to be like some deep cover. So I'm being super paranoid. That's just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks type of situation. But I'm just like, I just don't know what to make of that storyline. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like, hey, Mo has a love interest storyline that's going on, but it just feels like there's going to be I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop in that situation because he's bringing her in more and more about what he's up to. But maybe it's just like hey, like they kind of get into that gray area stuff more and more together. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's just where Mo's storyline's going to go. Like he's going to have his own partner in crime in the love department, but we'll see. It just, that storyline just kind of makes me go, I'm just suspicious. That's all. My suspicions in those type of situations do not always pan out. Another side of this story is the feds questioning Maddie. You know, obviously Maddie does not really know anything at all. Bosch has kind of kept her very isolated for multiple reasons. For one, he doesn't want her involved in this. Two, he also doesn't want to put her in a situation where she'd have to perjure herself. Because yes, if she knew anything, she would lie to cover for her dad and Chandler. But he'd also never want her to compromise herself like that. Because he wants her to just, he doesn't want to put his daughter in the middle of all of this. But it's like the feds questioning her like that. And she's like, yeah, I think I'm done here. And they're like, and that one of the agents was like, oh, a chip off the old block, kind of like not, because it's like, oh, if you got questions about my dad's location, ask him. Which even she's kind of like, if my dad's not forthright with them about stuff, that means like, because they're trying to ask Maddie how much she knows, whether she's involved, because it's like, right, yeah, just as much reason they hate Carl Rogers as anyone else, and your dad, domestic terrorism, and Chandler, like all this, throwing everything they can to get a rise out of her. And her and Bosch talk, but he tells her like he can't tell her anything, and she was upset. She's like, okay, do whatever you want to do, because for her it's like you're neck deep in something, and I think it's her situation where it's like, it's not just you looking after me, Dad. I'm old enough to look after you too. We look after each other. That's what family does, and it's like you're not kind of bringing me into the fold, but she also understands. She even asked him later on, it's like, you would never lie to me, right? He's like, no, I can't tell you what's going on, obviously, because I want to look after you, I want to protect you, but at the same time, it's also the situation of I would never lie to you. And she's like, I know. So she knows, like, her dad's just trying to isolate her from it. But I think for her, it does confirm, like, him not telling her, it confirms like he did do this. And it's like, well, That's the complicated thing of like, yes, they did wrong, but at the same time you're like, but it's about Carl Rogers. The man was a piece of shit. And once again, it's still the thing of, even though, because Chandler's plan, I mean, maybe like I said, once again, I brought this up earlier, like in the season, but maybe I'm misremembering. She was planning on killing Rogers herself, wasn't she? She wasn't necessarily planning to sell him out to the Bratva for them to kill him, but I think it just happened that way. Because, like, I think, wasn't she there to kill him, but the Bratva happened to show up? So, but it's like, your actions kind of set this all in motion, and now Chandler's having to pay the consequences of it because the FBI shows up. They got warrants for Bosch's place, which they didn't find anything, or Chandler's office, they didn't find anything, but things are complicated because Marty's kind of upset with Chandler because he told her last season, like, yo, I told you go down this route, there would be consequences. I got to do what I got to do to protect my firm. And she's like, come on, Martin, I'm sorry, like, things have turned out, because this affects it isn't, because Chandler is a representative of his firm, so anytime someone under his employ does something, it looks badly upon him and his reputation. So Matthew might not be the only one getting the axe, like Chandler might be too. Like, that's why I'm curious, by the end of this season, will Chandler kind of be fully on her own? Because, like, she wasn't working by herself last season, because she, even in the original Bosch, she wasn't working by herself, because it's a different firm she's working with now. But I'm like, she wasn't working solo. She worked for a different firm, and now she's working for Martin. But I wonder, will she kind of go the same route as Bosch? He's an independent private investigator, so I'm curious, is she going to go, like, start her own firm or something like that? I'm curious if that's the direction that's going to go. Like, not less, because Martin he definitely has a soft spot for Chandler, so he probably would try to keep her around. And it depends on what the fallout of this is. I mean, her getting arrested at the end of the episode doesn't help, because they couldn't find anything initially to fully confirm all this, but they found a recording that was like, it was like a backup of like something from Chandler's cloud or something like that. It's something that was on, I think, specifically Matthew's computer, so they couldn't find it anywhere else. So he had left it off. Like, I think he probably told them as much as possible, but he probably legitimately didn't want to screw Chandler over. So anything fully damning, he kept, which is this one recording, which sadly they now have, and they end up arresting her. Like, either like, hey, journalists and reporters got that news, like, oh, Chandler's about to be arrested. You also kind of feel like the FBI, because they're like, oh, we can leak the story. Like, I thought they're probably talking about that after the fact, but also maybe they were talking about that moment because they wanted to make it such a big publicity. Like, it's probably word got around that, like, through the pipeline, that Chandler was about to get arrested. So, hell of a way to end the episode. I'm so curious to see where all this takes us. I'm assuming that's going to be the main. Well, once again, we still have elements to the Ellis and Long thing. That probably won't be wrapped up next episode. That probably will come to a conclusion in the finale. Like, all these storylines will, obviously. But you would assume, like, the FBI storyline would take precedent. But maybe next episode, a good chunk, most of the episode will be about that. But then, like, 10 will be about closing all those storylines. And how this all plays out, how the season ends, I don't really know. I'm wondering, are we going to have a cliffhanger ending like season 1? Because, I mean, up until this point, Bosch has always been the type of show that doesn't have cliffhanger endings. Like, yes, there are storyline elements that bleed over into the next season, sure, but it's never like, usually everything's pretty resolved for them to kind of end on Maddie's kidnapping, kind of, you know, and what that set up for this season. Like, I'm curious, are they going to do the same thing in the season 2 finale? Well, like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next 2 episodes end up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.